Excellent. We shall kick off. So look, a massive warm welcome today to our 4-day week webinar. Quite a few people have asked me to do this for, well, probably for the last sort of 6-7 months. We moved to a 4-day week about 15, 16 months ago, and it's been a massive success. Not easy to do, but without doubt, a real success for us. But we are a recruitment firm, so very, very different to traditional manufacturing. It's a very different thing to do within manufacturing. So really keen today to hear from people who have done it, and the three kind of people have offered to come on here and answer questions are exactly that. So I've got some questions I will ask and want to ask, and I'll sort of do that individually after introductions. But please make sure you put your questions in the comment section, because I'm going to leave some time towards the end to answer those questions. Hopefully some of those will potentially have come up, but please, as you go in, feel free to put them in a box, and also feel free to say if there's someone specific you want to answer that question. We have two people from Human Resources and Nigel from Operations, so some different viewpoints and some different businesses as well. We'll definitely get away. It'll be 45 minutes to 60 minutes. Definitely will be no longer than an hour. It is recorded, so if you are here live, welcome. Thank you very much. If you are listening as well, later dates, hope you enjoy. So just in the way of introductions, my name is Mark Bracknell. I am owner and director of Theo James Recruitment. So we are 10-year-old manufacturing engineering specialists based in Durham, anywhere from blue collar, semi-skilled, right the way up to C-suite level exec. And I've had the joy of working with all three of my guests during the sort of tenure here, which has been very enjoyable. So if you wouldn't mind doing brief introductions, Nigel, I'll come to you first if that's okay, mate. If you wouldn't mind just letting everyone know who you are, the business you work for, what that business does, and I guess your role in the business, if that's okay.
Yeah. Nigel Freeman. I currently work for Irwin Highway Group, used to be known as Eldis, building leisure vehicles, so camper van, motorhomes and caravans, predominantly all into the UK market, although about 8% of it goes abroad. My background has been quite diverse. I spent 25 years at Thorn Lighting, a number of roles there, and then branched out into electronics, building materials, and then into the leisure vehicle market.
Thank you, mate. Over to you, Andy.
Yep, so my name's Andy Scott. I'm the head of HR here at Darkem Engineering. Darkem, long history, circa 70 years old. We had our 70th birthday last year. Predominantly an aerospace business, and within aerospace, thermal insulation products is our sort of mainstream product range. And we also work in the nuclear industry, so we've got a large team down on the HPC site down in Somerset, working on thermal insulation products and other parts of the project down on Hinkley. And we've got a site in Gloucester as well, which again serves the aerospace market. Smaller markets we serve, a little bit of motorsport, bit of government work, bit of defence, but by and large, we're an aerospace business.
Thank you, mate. Over to you, Leanne.
Yeah, so my name's Leanne. I'm the HR manager for Ford Aerospace. We specialise in making components and precision parts for obviously the aerospace sector as well as some commercial sectors. Work with the likes of GCP, Caterpillar, etc. So yeah, I've been here just over 2 years. Experienced quite a lot of things. Obviously, one of the main things I look after is obviously workplace culture, and 4-day week falls under that.
Thank you very much. I'm really keen to understand from all of you in terms of how that works in your very different types of business. Nigel, if you don't mind me coming to you first, because you've now worked for two businesses which have gone the 4-day week, which in itself is quite interesting, because I do see a trend where people may get used to that 4-day week and ensure that their next role has that same sort of benefit, which is a topic in itself. The business you came from before, BTS, you were instrumental in helping set that up, which is very interesting. So, and you were probably one of the first of its kind. I can't recall anyone else in that space that was doing that at the time. What were the main sort of reasons for you initially sort of taking on that decision? Because it's a big decision to do.
So I was fortunate enough for BTS to be given quite a wide role. BTS had a challenge in regards to trying to keep hold of the workforce. They do facades and fabrication of panels for lots of different buildings. But the northeast, and I didn't realise at the time until I got there, is they call it Cladding Valley for the UK. There's a mass amount of businesses all doing a very similar thing, and you would tend to get the team members would move from business to business for an extra 10 pence an hour. And that is really for me not the right thing that I wanted from the teams that we had. So we went on a journey of changing and improving the culture. And one of those arms was, how do we get retention within the business of the people, and that would minimise all the additional cost of retraining, all the quality issues you get, and the normal things that you would see in operations. I'd been made aware of the 4-day week from a business in Durham, which was Atom Bank. My daughter was working there, and I'd seen the fantastic impact it had on her when they'd introduced this 4-day week, how the work-life balance had improved, and they were generating a great culture in regards to the openness, transparency, and all the other things that they were doing. So I thought it would be a good thing to embark on, and we created what we call a forum, which was like Works Council, and we got them involved, and then reached out to a number of different businesses that were further down the journey on 4-day weeks than we were. We'd done quite a bit of research, and then went to speak to them about how they were doing at the pitfalls, but trying to understand really what was the main reason that we were doing this for. To ensure that whatever we did would be successful.
Yeah, thank you, mate. And similar question, well, same question like to Leanne, if that's okay, in terms of different sort of business, but again, why did you embark on that big decision?
So it was a couple of factors, actually. One of the things, like Nigel had mentioned, was work-life balance, looking at how we can kind of stand out from the crowd, make it a happier, more positive place to be. The other thing that had another factor to it was the energy crisis. So it was actually in 2022. So they actually put it out to the Works Council and said, is there any suggestions of what we could kind of do? And it was actually really well received, the 4-day working week. And, you know, like a lot of places, it really helps for, you know, attracting and retaining talent.
Yeah, massive, and that's the benefit we've seen at 100%, which is nice. The fact that both of you, you know, your decision, both of you, is because of the people side, not necessarily productivity or anything else. Was it similar to you, Andy? I know it's a very different situation there, and obviously with the union piece, that adds an element of depth to it as well. So what was that like for Darkem?
Yeah, I'll go into a bit of that. So ours was absolutely a people piece. Darkem. So if we stick with Stillington, the Northeast facility, which is our biggest facility for a moment, that was never a 5-day week anyway. It was 4.5. We always worked 7 till 11 on a Friday. Was typically the operational hours for the manufacturing facility anyway. The people piece was obviously the main driving point. I think lots of organisations. I think COVID changed it for a lot of people, whether you're in manufacturing, customer service, whatever you are, and people's priorities changed. You know, you hear that quite frequently, and people at Darkem are no different. So the main catalyst was doing something nice for our people, but it very quickly evolved into some of the other benefits that we've heard. And bearing in mind that our operational hours were only 4 hours on a Friday anyway. Add a break into that, starting the machines up, closing them down, getting product where you need to be. How many of those 4 hours are you truly effective? Whereby if you extend your 4 days by them hours, actually, are you being more productive as a business? So there were a number of different strands to it, but the main driving force was people. And yeah, you've mentioned our union piece. I don't know if you want to get into that now or a little bit further in the webinar, but we have a true mixed bag at Darkem in terms of what our flexible working and our 4-day working week looks like. Because that one size fits all approach, we just couldn't find it. So we do have a mixed bag depending on, you know, the contract you want and the site that you work. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, we came from exactly that. We did a half day Friday, and the decision was, how productive are those Fridays? Can we be more productive for those 4 days than we can over five, which is our deciding factor. So I think it's quite similar. A lot of manufacturing companies still have that. They have that half day Friday, which in itself is a benefit right now. Nigel, if you don't mind me asking, obviously, BTS was a smaller company, a lot smaller than Owenheimer. Owenheimer are a big organisation, employ a lot of people. So I hear a lot that it's much easier to do at a small company, but impossible to do at a big company. What are the key differences you've seen, would you say, going into an organisation which is much bigger, who also now run a 4-day week?
I would say the challenges were very similar, just at a larger scale. We still got to make sure that we cover the customer service part of it. So Monday to Thursday, the customers don't go away on a Friday. So we've got to ensure that we cover that. So it was exactly the same operationally wise, the challenges. Each company did slightly different because, as Andy said, there isn't one solution fits all. Some of the companies that we did research with made us aware of that to begin with. There is certain pitfalls that will impact everybody that they've got to be mindful of, such as how to calculate holidays, what to do with the bank holidays, roster off days, flexible working. But in regards to both businesses, it was done for a very similar reason. The work-life balance of the workforce, but also the positive impact it has on the individual and the cost saving into the business.
What was the reaction like? Because for majority of people, I imagine they were very happy about it, and obviously it was people led. Was there elements of were there some people saying actually that might not work for me, or because it's not always one size fits all, is it?
No, we had a number of people even at BTS. There was out of the 50, there was about 5 people that it didn't fit their lifestyle. So what we did was sat with them, agreed flexible working contracts, so it fit around their lifestyle. Some of it actually fit quite well with the business in regards to there would be somebody there answering the phones if need be, or you could get things done on a Friday that if they weren't there we would have to work around. But that number of people, it was then about their individual circumstances and trying to make sure that we didn't make them feel alienated and that they weren't part of the change, but that we could cover their needs and it fit with the needs of the business.
So thank you. Leanne, from a HR perspective, I imagine some headaches there as well in terms of changing working hours completely. The contracts can come into that because there's a trial period. When there's that trial end, what's that been like to navigate? Have you been at the stage where you've changed contracts, and if not, would you consider it? Because that's quite a popular HR-esque question I've got.
Yeah. So actually, when the initial change came in, it was over a 6-month trial period. So everyone was issued amendments to their contract, asked to sign. Obviously now going forward, we have it in all the current contracts. But I don't think from that perspective it's been difficult. We've stuck at the 37.5 hours, obviously into a compressed working week. So productivity wise, I think actually we get more out of people. You're there for a lot longer. We do 7 till 5. I find like I can get a lot done during that time because I'm on site. I can go and speak to people I need to, go to meetings, etc. So I think actually from a production point of view, it's been really helpful.
It's similar to Nigel, I guess. Then, if there were anyone in the business, so let's say they had childcare arrangements or whatever they had, they couldn't make that work, but they want to stay in the business. Do you have to flex to their certain needs?
Yeah, and I mean a lot of that is actually managed by our team leaders. They'll come to me for some advice, but overall we can be flexible where we need to be. From a customer sales point of view, we actually have the customer services team. They work from home on a Friday, so it alternates every week for those. Same with the sales engineers. One of those works one Friday morning out of 4 weeks. So it is. There are some challenges, but they're not difficult to overcome if you go into it with an open mind.
Yeah, and that's it. I think that that is modern day proper flexibility at its best to some extent.
Yeah.
Is that, and when you are recruiting, I guess, for new people, are you now looking for people who the 4-day week fits because it's a benefit, or will you still look for people who actually want to work there but they can't quite make that happen? What's that mindset? Because we're sometimes stuck in that little bit now.
Yeah, do you know we don't actually come across that? As soon as we mention a 4-day working week,
I'm in.
everyone kind of jumps.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to loads of careers fairs and speak to, for our apprenticeship program, and that seems to be one of the things that they're most excited about. It's a 4-day working week. So yeah, I don't think we have that stumbling block. Obviously, again, if we did, that would be something that we'd navigate internally with the candidate.
Yeah, it's. I mean, from our point of view, we did exactly the same. We had certain people didn't work for, and we flexed, and we just, they did the normal hours, and it worked absolutely fine. There were some benefits actually to the business side on that. You mentioned it there yourself, Nigel. You've got someone there for a contingency plan. We had to be careful; they weren't always that contingency plan, but that was just learning that. But actually now when we hire people who want a 4-day week as a benefit, because that's how we want to do moving forward.
I think when they've worked a 5-day week, I mean, myself included, I went from working 5 days a week and I was like, how's this going to work? And do the benefit you get from not working a Friday is immense. Like, it's an extra day to your weekend. You can get so much more done. I've got 2 children. It helps me. So, from a people perspective, it really works.
Yeah. Andy, from a multi-site point of view, because you have a site in Gloucester as well, and I'm right in saying you've got a slightly different arrangement there. How does that work? And actually, in particular, how does that work with the senior team who might need to work between or interact between the 2 sites?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think one of the big things that we found, and if anybody who's interested has the same concern that we had, hopefully I can help you with that, with what I'm about to say, is we and I know Nigel touched on it, that one size fits all approach, even within our business, we just could not find. And it became a question of, do we do it at all because we can't find something that suits everybody? Well, actually, yes, we did. And we had to make different arrangements depending on geographical location being one, and union agreement and non-union agreement being another, and job types. So it truly is a mixed bag of our arrangements. But the multi-site, Gloucester was far easier. So in Gloucester, it is a true 4-day working week, and that the facility is completely closed on a Friday, unless there's an overtime requirement, in which case it's just treated as an overtime day, like a Saturday and Sunday will be treated. Whereas Stillington, you've got various different mixed bags. In terms of a senior leadership team, yeah, again, it's natural to come up with these concerns, isn't it? When you're at we're now well into this process, and we've come quite accustomed to how it works and the nuances around it. But we've done that through the benefit of trials, like Leanne said, and learning as we go. We didn't have that benefit at the start, and that was a concern for leadership, myself included. But you do adapt, and now as a leadership team, how do we adapt? We get as much as we can done on that Monday to Thursday, because, like Leanne says, people tend to be here for longer hours. So we're not losing any time. People are still here for 37 hours or whatever their working hours would have been prior to the arrangement. So we're not losing any time. It's just changing your mindset to get, those meetings and those. But look, this is a benefit that we, like Leanne said, I see this as a benefit. I myself have 2 children as well, and see that as a benefit. So to that end, if the business needs me on a Friday to jump on a Teams call or pick up the phone or come into work if necessary, you would find that goodwill normally takes precedence there. We understand the benefit we have. Not many people enjoy that benefit. On the odd occasion that you're needed in the business for something, we haven't come across the answer being no. It's a one-off. We have this huge benefit. We don't mind giving back on this occasion. And that's typically what we've found.
Yeah, it's actually sort of answer, but I'll do some of the questions sort of live as I see them. But someone put this is something we're considering. Simon mentioned this. As Dark End, we company work short Fridays. One issue we are concerned about is internal perception of group management of the UK site. We are one of 6 global sites and will be the first to move to 4 days. We perceive this as a potential political risk rather than a practical one. Is this something that Speaker considered? And if so, how was that managed? Is that something you sort of did consider at all? You've half mentioned, you've sort of discussed it to some extent, but was that a consideration?
Yeah, I mean, a huge one. And if I compare us to Hinckley for a second, so our operation on Hinckley, that's a 10 on 4 off site. That because of where it's geographically based and the workload that they do, that's a 10 on 4 off. And as soon as you start to see 4 on 3 off at Stillington, you're immediately creating a divide there. Did it create a political risk? 100%. What we had to do there was identify other incentives for the people who maybe couldn't get that 4-day working week. So at least they got something. So right, the 4-day week, we can't do that there. And there's people within our Stillington and business as well that this applies to. For example, because of the nature of the work, we have 24/7 security. We've got other bits and pieces of the operation where this just wouldn't work. So, all right, regrettably, this 4-day week can't apply. Your role just doesn't owe to that benefit. However, in recognition that the other people are getting a benefit that you aren't. So the, and there's lots of things we did there that I'll not get into, but I'm happy to take offline. I think it was Simon who asked that question. But what I'm getting at is we had that risk and we foresaw those problems. The way we counteracted it was before announcing the 4-day week, almost trying to live that situation. And think, right, we can't give it to this person. What can we do in its place so that at least there's some new benefits being rolled out to everybody? And look, we haven't had any pushback to date. We've had no pushback at all from employees claiming that it's unfair to them because of the nature of their role. We just haven't had that.
Yeah, so. No, it's thank you. That helps. And Nigel, this one's to you. It was actually a similar question that I was going to ask actually. So I'll ask this one. Specifically, because my question was going to be it was twofold, I guess. What initially did you look for in terms of what KPIs and what triggers were you looking for specifically for? Is this working or is this not? Because obviously there's one thing in terms of the happiness and morale of people, but also it's the business side, it's the operations piece in terms of is this working? What the KPI is showing. So I'd be keen to know that, and just to build on that, there's a question from Tom Clark here who. Said from a manufacturing perspective, my worry perhaps a little pessimistic and more around internal performance management is that people might pace themselves to fill the longer days rather than sustain the same level of output. Have you found this has affected productivity in practice? A really good question. So if you wouldn't mind passing that to you now, that would be great, please.
Yeah. So the main areas of the main KPIs that we looked at initially was to do with how many people that we were losing per month, so our retention or our exit profile. We were doing a lot of work on productivity. So at BTS, they were working a 40-hour week. I had the plan of the 4-day week and didn't want to do 4 10s because I thought that would wait way too long. So I wanted to try and get that down to 37-hour a week. So we were very clear with the teams that we had there. For us to be able to do that had to be paid for somehow within the business, and that we started a journey of improvement and productivity improvement was one of the things that we had in there. And before we could do that, we had to get to a certain percentage point, which offset the additional or the reduction in the working week. That had a benefit in regards to everybody got an 8.1% hourly pay award and thought it was fantastic. We weren't really costing the business any more money because we've been allowed to do that because of the productivity improvement, but that helped with the retention. They then got the confidence that we could continue to improve, but we were very clear that the metrics were productivity, customer service levels was still upmost. So we had to do quite a lot of work with our customers of, we may be working 4 days a week, but the phones are still manned, so we're not shut. So don't think that we're not working. We looked at the absence levels and retention levels. What we saw was initially when we put the 4-day week in, we saw a great improvement in all 4 of the KPIs. What we then did see after around about 6 weeks was that the productivity started to drop off. The worry for me was that we were expecting too much from people working the longer hours. How we approached that was that we were really open and transparent with the numbers. We were really open and transparent with, if this continues, then we're going to have to to look at the end of the trial period of going back to a 5-day week unless we get the numbers back on track. And then what we saw was that once everybody realised that it wasn't going to go away, and that with the likelihood is that we would pull it, we start to see that productivity ratio go back to where we wanted to be. One of the reasons I still believe that is that people were starting to see the benefit of them not coming in on a Friday. So people were saving £380 a year on fuel. They were saving Fridays having to look for childcare. A lot of the guys were managing to get the list of jobs that the wives had given them during the week get done on a Friday, so they could go and still to football and play golf Saturday and Sunday. So it was having a positive impact in regards to not only their work-life balance, but how they were then interacting and the positive impact on the families. And they didn't want to lose that. They felt that they were quite protective. They would also come in, like Andy said, at short notice if we needed something out urgent for a Friday. So we still had that agility within the marketplace if needed. But we would go on a sort of a rota if that looked like it was going to be something that was constantly happening, and they would then know that every fourth week that could be my week that I might have to come in on Friday for overtime. So that they're the main KPIs that we focused on, but it was very important that we were transparent and clear with all the inputs to them, and then what would happen if things didn't get to where they needed to be.
Yeah, that's like you said, the key there is that communication transparency piece, isn't it? And because essentially I kind of felt, because ours went exactly the same, I kind of felt, am I dangling a carrot too much here? I almost threatened to take it back initially, but it is a benefit, but it has to benefit. We said right at the start, it's got to benefit us, it's got to benefit you. And if one of those doesn't work, we pull it. It has to be both. So we saw exactly the same. We saw a massive spike, and then they got a bit sort of, I think that complacency set in and initial excitement. And then we just got some real figures and stats, and then we've now managed to go back up and stay there. So it's interesting. We were exactly the same in that sense. I am going to try answer some of these, talk about some of these questions live instead of mine, because it feels better to do that. You've kind of answered there a little bit anyway, Nigel, but I'll just stay with you for 2 seconds, because Richard's asked how your customers have responded. I know you mentioned there that you communicate that with them. That is a fear for a lot of people. It's a fear that they will lose a competitive edge if their competitors down the road work 5 days and they work 4. How do you communicate that? So would you mind going just a little bit of detail how you did that and how you do that now? That's okay.
Yeah. So I can't tell you how they do it here because it's a different arm of the business on the commercial side. But at BTS, we made sure that our business development manager and sales guys went in and went through what we were doing with each one of the customers. So we wanted to give them the assurance that we were open and we were open for business as normal. They wouldn't see any impact. Their worries, so we listened to what their feedback was and then reviewed the feedback. Their worries were, what happens if I need something urgent on a Friday or a Saturday? What happens if something's not right and we've got a quality issue? All of the normal day-to-day things that you would see Monday to Friday. What we had to give them was that the assurances that if any of that happened, we still had the support within the organisation. We also give them the email addresses and phone numbers of the senior leadership team, that if they weren't able to get hold of somebody on that Friday, that we would still be available for them to contact. We'd also done quite a bit of work in the commercial office on monitoring the number of calls that we took on a Friday, and it was frightening. And I don't know whether it was because it was a construction trade and they're all in the pub at 12 o'clock. However, it averaged around about 7 calls per day, and 1 call per day after 1 o'clock. So that's all that we were taking in, which is not the most efficient use of the team's time, where we could get more done during the Monday to Thursday. So we delivered that information back to the customers. We give them the support mechanisms that we'd come up with. So we worked with them. Some of them would still come back to, well, you're not open on a Friday. That's not what we were saying. What we're saying is we work a 4-day week. That 4-day week could be Monday to Thursday or it could be Tuesday to Friday. So it's business as normal for us. And over a period of months, they just accepted that. And everything was fine.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Leanne, Andy, probably either of you, if you've experienced this, because it'll depend if you have or you haven't, but for the people or the shifts you used to do, and Andy Rees asked it from Stand Strong, because I asked the question there, if you have, did any of the business work a 7-day week pattern beforehand? Because that's obviously quite a big shift. Did either you move, or did you have people working those shifts? Because that's quite a big transition, I imagine.
No, we didn't have 7-day shift work, and it was always 4.5 days, typically days. As well, it was very rarely night shift. Our operating hours, we were quite fortunate for a traditional manufacturing business. The operational hours did typically be, 7:30 till 4:15 was ordinarily our Monday to Thursday, and then a shorter day on a Friday. No, the only nuance we had was the Hinkley Point C, which is a 10-on-4 off rotation in line with our customer, and we had to just accept that this incentive couldn't be applied to that pool of people, which we didn't get much pushback, because I'd say the vast majority travel quite some distance. I mean, some will fly from Aberdeen down to Bristol and then get a coach on the site or whatever. So a 10-on-4 off actually works better for them anyway.
Yeah.
So no, we didn't I didn't personally experience that, but what we did do was we did have to exclude certain pools of people, and that didn't come with the pushback that what we probably expected it to. So if other people on the call have got a similar concern, we had that worry, and it just didn't materialise.
Excellent. Leanne, from HR perspective, what difference did you see in retention? Obviously, you've talked about the attraction piece, but in terms of absenteeism, all the stuff that a typical HR officer would track, what difference did you see there? And were you actually looking for certain KPIs based on that move as well?
So similar to Nigel, we've seen a decrease actually in sickness absence.
Yeah. Oh, I think someone's on mute.
Yeah, we've got somebody's telephone call there.
We've seen a decrease in sickness absence, and productivity has went up. We also find that because we work Monday to Thursday, you get a lot of people who actually are more willing to come in on a Friday, for overtime. It's not really cutting into their weekend as such. But just to touch on the holidays, I've just seen a question on the holiday calculation, and I don't know whether you do it, anyone does it differently. We calculate ours in hours. So we use a time and attendance system. It calculates it in hours. Actually, people can take an hour off in the afternoon if they want to, or, it's not the traditional half-day split. The slight downside of that is because they're off for 3 days, we kind of have to remember to send out kind of regular memos to say, remember to take your holidays, because obviously with them being off 3 days, they're not as forthright in taking the holidays, but majority of people do. We actually then introduced a carryover as well, so carryover of 3 days automatically at the end of the year. So there's loads of different things that we've done with the holidays. But shifts as well. So we still do shifts, touching on your last question. We have 3 shift patterns. Most people will work the day shift, which is 7 to 5. Some people work an early shift, but we also have a late shift as well. So, sometimes for childcare reasons, it might be more preferable to work the late shift.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and that is an appreciation people got to look at. Have you seen a difference in sickness at all? Is that something that you've tracked out of interest? Because you'd hope people are more recovered, I guess, to some extent. Is that something you've seen?
So our sickness absence, our target is set at a 2%, and it can fluctuate, obviously, depending on the time of year.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a massive increase in sickness, but one of the other benefits that we actually introduced was medical leave. So if anyone's got any kind of doctor's appointments now, because you kind of get a doctor appointment when you want one. So yeah, any hospital, doctors, kind of dental, that's all 2 hours paid leave, and people take that up. So I think because people are kind of addressing a problem with their health early, it kind of negates it takes out the sickness absence at a later date being more long term.
Yeah, true, because people might think it's harsh, but we ask people, and it's slightly different setup. So we reduced our contractor. We pay them the same. They now do a 36-hour week. We just pay them the same. And I think because we did that, we were comfortable with asking certain things. And we now say that whenever possible, isn't always, doctors, medical, if you can try and get them on a Friday, then we ask them to. So it isn't always possible, but I was comfortable doing that because that has helped things when there's less people out for, various reasons that Monday to Thursday. My mentality personally would be, I want them to have a great life outside of work. I've always wanted people to have a balance. I hate people working on a night time, on holidays. I'm really against it. But for me, it means people should come in and work hard that Monday to Thursday. So that's our sort of culture. But it kind of obviously depends on what the culture is. Someone's asked, if you don't mind, Laura, I know you touched on this before, that any additional benefits for those who couldn't work a 4-day week. Is there anything specific at all, or is it just general sort of flexibility that you give them? Is there anything sort of specific you do?
So was that aimed at me, yeah?
Well, Leanne or Andy, so whoever wants to take it. If anyone's got anything.
I'm happy to, because we found ourselves in that position, to be honest. Yeah. And look, it was around flexibility, so it was maybe operate things on like a rotational basis, or we didn't just put a 4-day week in, we put flexible working in, so with core hours and staggering start and finish times, and so that really the vast majority of basically there was something for everybody. Now it wasn't always the same thing, and some people choose not to work a 4-day week, even if they can, for reasons that we've touched on previous, like childcare or travel arrangements or whatever it might be. But they might opt to take a different flexible benefit, like they might start earlier and leave later, or start earlier and leave earlier, or whatever that agreement is. So it was about offering. It wasn't just one offering was our 4-day week. It formed part of a much wider flexible working offering where we could provide it. So. Basically, we found ourselves in a position where people could work the hours that suited them, as long as the business needs were met, and by and large they are. I mean, do we get the odd frustration from time to time? Of course we do. I think I'm not going to sit here and say we never see any frustrations at all. Yeah, we do, but they're isolated and we manage them. And we would never think, right, that one frustration now means that we would consider reversing this decision. We just manage that on a case by case basis.
It sounds like you've all just become much more flexible because of the change you made. Then mentality-wise, there's just a new degree of flexibility there, that you're working with people instead of this is what you work and there's no way around it. Which for me is great to hear, because that's the way I see the world changing for the better. And I think as young people come into this industry, I think they'll want that flexibility, and it helps for childcare reasons and all sorts of other stuff. Nigel, if you don't mind me asking, quite a few people have said they won't do it. They wouldn't work for them because they're really concerned about the senior team, and if the senior team would end up picking up lots of additional work. Is that something you've experienced, and what would you say to people who have those fears?
I've seen no experience of that, apart from maybe it's the odd phone call on a Friday if they haven't been able to get hold of somebody in one of the departments. What you actually see with the improvement in the productivity of each of the areas is that they'll get through more of the work, which means you can then upskill them and increase their level of authority, and they can take on more, as long as it's part of the plan that you've got the PDP with them. So I've seen absolutely no members of the senior team on either sites here or another couple of sites that I've helped get this introduced into pick on the senior leaders with the organisation, going to 24/7. Actually, the opposite, that they've got probably less to do.
Excellent. And I agree, but that's a fear here quite a bit. To some extent, senior people do tend to pick up more as nature of the beast about a job. So, you could argue that, and I think I've seen this, where they might still do something on a Friday, but they would normally work on a Wednesday night, a Thursday night, a so-and-so night. So actually, they could be working less in the week, and they might just, do a couple of hours of additional. In terms of the overtime piece, because I've heard some fear behind, well, we'll just end up, spending more money on overtime now because Friday will become overtime. How have you navigated around that, and have you had to do so?
So I'll talk about BTS because that was my baby.
Yeah.
At BTS, we had the agreement as we were putting it in that Friday would be the overtime shift if required. But we also had agreement that the first 4 hours of that overtime shift would be just at standard rate. Anything above that would then go to straight away to time and a half. Knowing fine well that we didn't really want to be running overtime. I don't like overtime. It's there's a failure somewhere down the rest of the process if we haven't to run overtime all the time. So I wanted it to be there if we need it. It's a bit of a release valve, but it was something that was not to be used unless it was really an impact to the customer. So from that point of view, Fridays was the overtime. We could work Saturday and Sundays if need be. That was it as part of the contract. Where I am now, it's a little bit different. In certain areas of the business, they will be on a rota to work on Friday because there may be a requirement that the delivery such as they might be coming up to pick a fleet of vehicles. They're going abroad. They can only come in on a Friday. We don't normally work on Friday, so they'll be on a rota that Friday would be their roster as overtime. So, but that would just be in standard rates. So as we go back to, I think we've all alluded to, there's not one size fits all in this. The good thing about it is if it's done in the right way and you understand the metrics, the inputs into what you're trying to do, it can actually add additional flexibility into your workplace, but also you don't have to get a positive bounce on the engagement front. That's where I've seen everywhere it's gone in that you have the positive impact on the engagement front with the people.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's been unsurprisingly, it's been the best change, the best well-received change we've ever made. We do an anonymous survey every year, and this was 10 out of 10 in terms of how do you rate it. So it's they do not want me to take this back. So I completely understand that. It's a huge part of it. But it's very, that we said at the start of the call that we don't want this to be selling the 40 a week. You want to be honest, but what the pleasing thing is, it's worked for you perfectly. Leanne, a question to you here. You've had a couple of questions, but I'll just pick this one if you don't mind, because it kind of it joins on from what Nigel said there. Could people choose the 4 days they want to work for you, or would they need to work the Monday to Thursday, for example? Was yours set, or could they choose they want a Wednesday off, for example?
It's set Monday to Thursday, but as an example, our sales engineers, we've asked them if they can come in on Friday. Obviously, they've got the option to come in or work from home on the Friday. But the one thing we'd said to those was you can take the other half a day off wherever you like. So they'll work a half day on a Friday, but during that week, they can take any of that. So whilst the rest of the site is Monday to Thursday, there's some areas where we've kind of had to adapt it slightly.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Question to you all in the Visioverse, okay. If you're going to do it again, knowing what you know now, I'll come to you first, Andy. What would you do differently going into it now?
Yeah, to genuinely sleep better at night. And what I mean by that is, probably like many people on this call, the fact you've dialed in, it's maybe on your agenda. And it's quite frankly was terrifying, not just for me, but for the rest of the execs as well. And, we had a should we, shouldn't we? And, getting wrapped around the axle on we can't give it to everybody and all of that. And, if I was doing it again, I'd probably not be less cautious, but I would certainly, how can I put it? Just not worry as much as what I did when we went through this process. It turned out to be the right thing. Despite all of the challenges, despite all of the reasons not to do it, it turned out to be the right thing.
Excellent. And same to you, Nigel?
Very similar. The first time I put it was a definite leap of faith, with a lot riding on it. As I said, it was my initiative that I wanted to get in. Having helped other companies do it from there. It's the confidence of knowing that it works, as long as you do the prep work up front and understand exactly the real reasons why you want to do it. And if you get that done and then get the involvement of your teams early and make them part of the change. So that's the for me, the really important part is make them, so give them the options of what shift patterns do you want to work, how often do you want to do this, how do we get around this, what do you want to do with the holidays. Get them to give you the input and the feedback in regards to what's required, and that just makes it a lot easier to implement. But also, when you're communicating back to them of how things are working, that don't be courageous in regards to tweaking it and modifying it. It may be you don't get it right first time, but then tweak it, but make sure they're involved in that. But apart from that, I wouldn't change anything. I'd probably not to try and make it law that everybody has to go 4 days a week. So that's the only change that I would have. It's one of the best initiatives that I've seen impact manufacturing businesses anywhere.
Yeah, thank you. And you've answered there Tom's question, which was on, did you ask your staff for feedback on the change before launching it? I know, you really did. I know that was a huge part of it. And thanks, Andy, for commenting there. You consulted the union as well. Just to touch on before I come to the end. So if you wouldn't mind talking briefly about that, that was something you went in to talk to them about, because that was obviously a big change.
It was, yeah. And I think it's worth noting as well, the one thing we did is we did a trial. And we really released the brakes slowly. So we went in with a bit of flexibility to begin with core hours. Then we removed the core hours on a Friday, meaning that people could have a 4-day week. And then we almost mandated it in some areas, particularly Gloucester. So, this wasn't just an overnight step change. We were very gradually moved into the 4-day week over a period of a trial. But touching on the unions, yeah, and look, I have a great relationship with our trade unions. We had our challenges in the past, yes, but we do have largely speaking, we have a great relationship with our trade unions. The bit that took me by surprise is I thought the trade unions would jump at this, and they didn't. The trade unions had quite a lot of concerns, and the reality, we were like, we've touched on it. You've got your Fridays off. It's better for childcare. You're saving at least 1/5 of your weekly fuel bill. You've got X, Y, Z, and if there is a need for overtime, you can work that on a Friday, but you still got a weekend with your family. So we genuinely thought that the unions would bite our hand off, and they didn't. And the reason for that is they had concerns that their members would be working longer Monday to Thursday, and the impact that might have on, whether it be fatigue. The reality was that they were doing that anyway, because, quite often there was overtime through the week. But look, it was a genuine concern from the unions. And it became a bit of a sticking point for us, to be honest. And ultimately, the only way we got through that was actually to say, rather than have we either do it or we don't, it's there for people who want it, and it's people who don't have to do it. And for that pocket of people, and those who want to do it, just let us know, and we'll look at your application, favourably, which is what we did. And as more people applied, and then they saw the benefits, they were telling their mates, and they were like, "Oh, it's Friday, I'll be playing golf." "Oh, well, I'm at work." And before you knew where you are, more and more people applied, and over a period of time, it became more commonplace. But look, we do have collective bargaining on site. If the unions had their concerns, we respect those concerns, and we as a business just wanted to work with our trade union reps to find something that benefited everybody, and I think we've done a really good job there with our reps. Thank you to them as well. Collectively we found something that worked.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And Leanne, what about you?
I think my comments really would just echo what Nigel and Andy have said. I mean, do your research, communicate. The people at the core of your business, they're the people that matter. We put it out to the Works Council. They were all consulted. So yeah, just kind of listen to what your workforce want.
And just finally, for you all, very quickly, if that's okay, if there's someone sat there and they need to justify this to the owner of the business, for example, because that is a big part of it, what quick advice would you give them to do that while listening to this?
Understand what makes the owner tick, what's important to them. On the research part, ensure that you have all of the metrics and covered, ensuring that any impact to the P&L would be a positive, because that would likely be easier to get across the line. And I'm saying this from personal experience. trying to get them to understand that having an engaged workforce in the long run will be far better for your business than having people coming in and out of the business because they're chasing the extra pennies. And if you do that work and present it in the right way, lay the seeds early, so start talking about it early, so that it's not a surprise to them. And then as long as you've got that done in the right way and understand what's important to the business owner, then I'm sure that they will support you on that. And as Andy said, go in slow and then as a trial and then expand it from there. I know the businesses that have gone big bang straight away, and it's been successful, and others that have gone big bang and then had to back off and then move further along. So for business owners, understand what is important to them as the business.
Thank you. And Leanne, slightly different question for you, but what's been the biggest benefit for the business and for you since it's been implemented?
Production has been a really big one. And like Nigel said, just people engagement, creating a more positive workplace culture, having that work-life balance, where we can implement it is really crucial. Perfect.
Same to you, Andy?
Yeah, engagement. I mean, I think Nigel touched on it definitely, but it just feels a nicer place to be, genuinely, and that's really difficult to quantify. Like, I've got loads of data behind it that backs this up, whether it be absence, turnover, engagement scores, whatever that might be. I could go into percentages, but actually it just feels a nicer place to be. I have my interactions with the shop floor or the office staff, and it's just more, particularly on a Thursday afternoon when they're walking into a Friday, the Friday at home with the family that they didn't have, not too long ago. Genuinely, it's just a nicer place to work, and it's really nice when people reinforce that, and they'll just say it's really good incentive, really great, loving it. I was thinking of getting a job somewhere else, but I'm absolutely not doing that now. And it's just a far nicer place to be.
Yeah, and I'd echo that massively. It's been a massive game changer to us because people are just happier, and I love to see what people do on a Friday. Some of the lads play golf together. Some people see it as a self-care day. Some people do it as a fitness. Johnny's now changed to childcare, so he looks after his little girl. Do you know what I mean? I love that. A business, it's just work. Do you know what I mean? Ultimately, it should always just be work. You enjoy coming. It should subsidise a great home life. So I completely agree with that. It just becomes a happier place in work, but they're happier in general because they've got also more time to do what they want to do. So perfect. Well, thank you all so much for that. Apologies if I didn't get to your specific question. We had quite a few. I'm sure they'll be happy to pick them up offline. But look, thank you to Leanne, Andy, and Nigel for your time. Massively appreciate that because you're all great success stories, the 4-day week. But this is you just coming on and being honest about the process. So I massively appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's come on, asked questions and everything. It's been really, really good. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you, everyone. I will send this out as well. It'll be out within the next sort of 24, 40 hours. So please feel free to send it to your the powers that be that make decisions in a 4-day week. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions myself. So thank everybody, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.